Crypto is chaos. Prices go up 40% on Wednesday and then crash 60% on Thursday. For the longest time, it was absolutely useless as money. So someone decided to invent a version of crypto that acts exactly like a dollar. Stable, predictable. I'm a law student that's deeply interested in finance, and I've been writing a research paper on stablecoins for the past 2 months. So I'm breaking down the definition, the history, every type that exists, and the legal drama that's happening between governments right now as they try to control it. So let's start with the definition of crypto, because most of us don't even understand it. Like me, a couple of months ago, I thought that crypto was just money that is very volatile and goes up and down, and why would people even buy it? Is it something like gambling? Basically, crypto is digital currency that exists only online, so we don't have paper. And there's also no bank that's regulating all of the transactions that are done with the money. Instead of a bank, there are thousands of computers that are regulating it instead. This is what leads us to what is blockchain. Blockchain is the technology that is like a shared record book. Imagine Google Docs that everybody that's involved in crypto has, and every single transaction done by every single actor is going to be shown in the Google Docs. For example, I'm Mehan and we have a Steve and we have a Jenna, right? We all have this Google Docs, and if I send $10 to Steve, Jenna's Google Docs is going to show it too, obviously. It's very hard to hack, because if you were to hack it, you would have to deal with thousands and thousands of computers. So this is what makes crypto more safe, money-wise, not investment-wise. And also, it's something that makes crypto decentralized, because there's no bank regulating it. Usually with my money, I have a bank account where the bank can just not let me do the transaction. With crypto, I don't have this problem. That's why it is viewed as more independent. But it's also very, very volatile, because there's no center and there's no really backup for digital currencies like cryptocurrencies like Bitcoins. They just exist, they depend purely on how much interest there is to buy them, sell them, etc. Imagine you want to buy a coffee using Bitcoin. There's a problem with the QR code or whatever, and the transaction takes 10 minutes. And then Bitcoin moves 3%, so you either overpay or underpay. That is a nightmare at that point. So here's the fix. Stablecoin is a cryptocurrency that is designed to hold value. It's usually pegged to the US dollar. It means that one coin equals $1, whatever happens. It lives on the blockchain, so it's not just the usual dollar, because it's still decentralized. It moves like crypto, but it doesn't swing like crypto. It can be backed up by almost anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be the US dollar. It could also be like gold, silver, etc. Think of it as a digital dollar that you can send anywhere at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without a bank taking a cut. That's the core value of stablecoins. It's the cost, it's the speed, and it's also the accessibility. Here's where it gets interesting, because saying that the coin is worth $1 is easy, but actually keeping it as stable is the problem, because markets go crazy, and people have tried to solve it, and it's where it went a little bit insane. If you want to understand what's happening today, we have to go to the very roots. The year is 2014. Crypto is still mostly a niche internet experiment. Bitcoin is volatile, like it's now. Ethereum doesn't exist yet. A company called Tether decides to do something that's gonna quietly reshape the whole financial industry in the next years. Well, financial technology industry. Their pitch is very simple. We hold one real US dollar in a bank account for every single Tether coin we issue. You want to move money between crypto exchanges without going to the bank every single time? We got you. It's stable, trust us. Tether became the backbone for the entire crypto trading ecosystem. Within a few years, it was handling more transactions on a daily basis than Bitcoin itself, which is the single most traded asset in crypto. There was just one problem. Nobody confirmed the dollars in the bank. They promised full backing. They avoided every proper audit for years. They just asked the whole crypto market to trust them. And somehow everybody did. Like, I would do that too, because like stable crypto it's so cool, isn't it? Fast forward to 2018. The crypto market has just had its first major bubble and crash. A company called Circle launched usdc, the clean version. Fully audited, monthly reserve reports published publicly, regulated, and the entire pitch was, we do what Tether does, and we will actually show you the receipts. There was the same concept with a completely different philosophy. While Tether had the dominant market share, USDC was smaller but fully regulated and more transparent too. And that tension between the one that everybody uses and the one that everybody trusts is still at the center of the stablecoin debate right now. Then 2020 hits. Decentralized finance, DeFi, explodes. And a genuinely interesting question emerges there. Why do we even need real dollars? What if we just made a stablecoin that is backed entirely by other crypto? No banks, no companies, and no code. This gives us DAI, a stablecoin that wasn't backed by dollars in a bank, but by Ethereum, locked in a smart contract. It was over-collateralized. You deposit more crypto than the DAI that you borrow. If your collateral value drops too low, the system automatically liquidates it just to protect the peg. Complex, but no company trusts. But then someone took it even further. They decided that stablecoins don't need dollars, they don't need crypto, they don't need commodities, they don't need anything other than code, math, algorithms, pure market incentives written in code. What could possibly go wrong? In May 2022, a series of coordinated large withdrawals triggered a death spiral. The algorithm couldn't maintain the peg. Luna hyperinflated as the system minted billions of new coins, trying to maintain itself stable, trying to restore balance. 40 billion in value lost in just 72 hours. The founder fled the country and he was eventually found in Montenegro with falsified documents. Multiple countries opened criminal investigations. Hundreds of thousands of people lost a significant amount of their savings. And every government on earth started paying more attention to stablecoins for the first time. Which brings us to the types of stablecoins. Think of this like a cast of characters. While they have same goals, they have completely different personalities. Okay, so let's start with character 1, fiat-based stablecoins. The original and the most simple. For every coin that's issued, the company holds the same amount of money in a bank, an equivalent amount of real-world assets like US dollars or euros, whatever. The coin is always redeemable for real money. And somehow it doesn't always work that way. USDT is the biggest, over $110 billion in circulation, the most traded crypto asset on the planet. And here's the thing that will genuinely short-circuit your brain. And they were fined 41 million US dollars by the US government in 2021 for claiming that their reserves were full while they were not. USDC is the regulated counterpart. Monthly reserve attestation is published by major accounting firms, fully backed by cash and short-term US treasuries. When US federal stablecoin regulation arrived in 2025, USDC was basically the law that it was written for. Together, Tether and USDC control over 80% of the whole stablecoin market. But the competition is not close. They don't just rule the category, they are the category. So the next character is crypto-based stablecoins. Philosophy is I don't trust banks at all. I don't trust governments at all. I only trust decentralized systems. I want stablecoins to be based entirely on blockchain with no human intervention possible. The mechanics is that you deposit the cryptocurrency as collateral, usually at least 150% of the AI that you want to create, into a smart contract. That over-collateralization is your safety buffer. If your collateral value drops too low, your contract is going to be automatically liquidated, which will protect the peg. So the beautiful part about it is that there's no company to trust, no government to trust, and also no bank that can just simply freeze your account. The rules are written completely in code and executed automatically. However, there's also risk that the collateral is crypto, and we know what happens with crypto now, which leads us to our next character, which is algorithmic stablecoins, or as I like to describe them, the ambitious one that try to prove that she's better than everybody. So the concept is, instead of backing your stablecoins with real assets, you rely on algorithms, code, you use algorithms and market incentives to control the supply and demand automatically. When price goes above $1, you release more coins to bring it down. When it drops below $1, you burn coins to push it up. So no collateral is needed here, only self-correcting mechanics. Terra Luna was the most famous example. It had an entire ecosystem, a savings system called Anchor offering 20% annual returns, which is insane because banks were offering less than 1. Billions floated in. At its peak, Terra's market cap hit $60 billion. Mainstream media called it the future of money. In May 2022, coordinated large withdrawals from the Anchor protocol triggered a death spiral. USD lost its dollar peg and Luna hyperinflated because the algorithm produced so many new coins, billions of them, just to restore the balance. $40 billion were erased. The word contagion started appearing in mainstream financial news. Finder fled with falsified documents in Montenegro. Hundreds of thousands of people were financially devastated. The next character is commodity-based stablecoins. Instead of pegging to a currency, you peg to a physical asset that is typically gold. So each token represents the ownership of a specific amount of gold that is sitting in a licensed vault. Pax gold and tether gold are the main examples of it. So they track gold's value, not fixed peg. So it's completely different use case and even a different audience too. And then there's the fifth category that is forming in real time: central bank digital currencies. These are stablecoins issued by the governments themselves. China has a digital yuan. The EU is developing digital euro. But make no mistake, because these are not private stablecoins. They are government-controlled money on blockchain. The state's direct response to losing control over stablecoins. There are 5 different answers to the same question. How do you make a digital coin that holds its value? The global stablecoin market nowadays sits at around $272 billion, right? So that's not niche and that's not a tech experiment. That is a significant growing piece of the entire global financial infrastructure. Visa launched a pilot to settle transactions in the USDC. PayPal issued its own stablecoin. Stripe acquired a stablecoin platform. These are not crypto-native companies. These are the largest payment companies that are trying to incorporate stablecoins. Because traditional international bank transfers can take up to 3 to 5 days and also cost 5 to 10% in fees. Stablecoin transfers cost less and also take seconds. It's practical for both businesses that are making international trade and for families that are trying to send money across the globe. Sometimes it is the most practical financial tool available to most. This is one of the reasons why the adopting of stablecoins could be more prominent in smaller economies than in wealthy countries. The traditional financial system failed these people. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, I would love to have you here with me on my road to 2,000 subscribers. I'm Mehin, I'm learning finance, and I'm teaching it to you in very simple terms, because we're on the same boat here. Right now, the US states are getting involved. Wyoming has become the first state to issue its own stablecoin, the Frontier stable token, backed 102% by cash and US treasuries. Government issued at the state level. So the line between private and public money is actively blurring. But here's the counter argument that regulators use constantly. Since 2022, the majority of illicit crypto flows have been denominated in stablecoins, precisely because they're liquid, widely accepted, and easy to move across borders. Regulators have used this as the first and primary reason for urgent oversight. And in 2025, they finally started acting. Which brings us to the most important section of the whole video, the legal battle. Let's start with the United States, because what the US does to the financial system affects the whole globe. For years, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and the Treasury Department were in a three-way fight over who had the jurisdiction over stablecoins. Was the security, payment instrument? Nobody agreed, and the same product was regulated by different actors. Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act was signed into law on July 18, 2025. Here's what it actually requires. Every stablecoin has to be backed one-on-one by a real-world asset. Monthly reserve reports publicly announced, regular third-party audits, and the line that ends the whole era, algorithmic stablecoins are completely banned. The law creates a dual regulatory system. Issuers with over $10 billion in circulation have to register federally. Smaller issuers can operate under state supervision. And compliant stablecoins are no longer considered commodities or securities. They're treated as payment instruments under banking regulators, completely removing them from the Securities and Exchange Commission. And there's a strategic angle to it that is very significant from the geopolitical angle. The US is using stablecoins as a dollar-dominant play. If the world is going digital, they want the stablecoins to be US-pegged, American stablecoins operating under the US federal law and backed by US treasuries. It's soft power that's delivered through fintech, and it is deliberate. Now let's move on to the European Union, which got here first, to be honest, and they took a completely different approach. The Markets and Crypto Assets Regulation that I have cited a million times in the paper that I'm working in. My paper is basically about stablecoins and how they could not be as suitable for smaller economies. So this regulation has took full effect in January 2025. The world's first comprehensive crypto regulation covering an entire major economic bloc. But here's the EU's core priority, and it's completely different from the US. So it caps non-euro stablecoin transactions to only 200 million euros per day. Translation, they're not trying to spread euro through stablecoins, they're trying to limit US stablecoins. So they have a completely opposite goal. This creates a real regulatory conflict happening now. The US wants the dollar stablecoins to be everywhere, the EU doesn't want them. This is the financial Cold War that nobody's talking about. And then there's Asia, where the desire to become the global crypto hub is insane, but there's a dramatically different approach between states. Singapore, Hong Kong, and Japan are moving extremely fast, but in very different directions. Hong Kong passed its stablecoin ordinance in May 2025, which took effect on August 1st. Issuers need a license, a minimum capital of 25 million, fully backed reserves at all times, and reserve assets completely segregated from the issuers on operational funds, so that if the company is collapsing, your money is still protected. Singapore runs regulatory sandboxes, letting companies first test how the stablecoins are going to work under real supervision before full licensing. Japan links the stablecoins directly to the yen reserves, building in currency sovereignty from day one. Both are threading the same needle, attract serious operators, exclude risky ones. And then there's China, who banned stablecoins entirely. Not regulated, not limited, not restricted, just banned. Instead, China is pushing the digital yuan, a state-controlled central bank digital currency, as the only legitimate digital money. Will not allow private companies to create money that competes with sovereign currency. Full stop. As of now, stablecoin regulation is fully or partially enforced in 11 of the 25 biggest wealthiest economies. Turkey allows trading but bans payment. India sees stablecoins as a monetary threat, and most emerging economies are still a regulatory vacuum. And that vacuum is not a problem for stablecoins, it's actually an opportunity. Companies are already trying to figure out where it is the most profitable to spread stablecoins. Tether announced its relocation to El Salvador. This is regulatory arbitrage at a global scale, and it's happening right now. So let's land this. Stablecoins started as a simple technical fix for the volatility of crypto. One company said, "Trust us, we have dollars." The other company showed the receipts. Somebody decided to do it with mass instead of dollars, and in the US then decided to ban it because that catastrophically failed. And now governments in every single continent are trying to rewrite the system. Your government is either regulating, banning, or building one, unless you're from a really small country like I am. This is a money story, and it's just getting started. If this was useful and you want more financial content from somebody that's literally just learning it and presenting it to you in the simplest way, then you can subscribe and like this video. And also comment, do you guys think the stablecoins stand a chance? So I'm not sure.